Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick review of our last performance. Like I said after the game, I thought the turnover component was significant, but as I look at it today, having studied the video, it's the turnover component coupled with the complementary component of play. Oftentimes, we have those discussions hand in hand because they're significant. And what I mean is, obviously, we turned the ball over some. We turned the ball over in the red area. It cost us potentially 7 points, but then Baltimore supported that by putting together a 90-plus yard drive and scoring. In the second half, we intercepted a ball. Mika Fitzpatrick intercepted the ball in the red area, and then we didn't follow that turnover up with complementary offense. As a matter of fact, we threw a pick six on the other side of it. And so the turnover game was big. I think there were several balls on the ground that we weren't able to get on, that they had on the ground that we weren't able to get on. And obviously the one ball that we put on the ground, they did get on. And so the turnover game was big. The complementary component of the turnover game was big, whether you're talking about an offense backing up a turnover with a score or a defense backing up a turnover with a stop. We didn't win that component of the game, and oftentimes those elements shape the outcome of football games. I think you couple that with our inability to control the run throughout, and you get the end result. Our inability to control the run created advantageous possession down moments for them, or a lack thereof. They possessed the ball, and so those are some things that obviously have our attention as we review and quickly transition to get ready to Kansas City. From a health standpoint, I'll outline some things. Some guys that didn't play yesterday who have a real chance this week: Justin Fields, Deshaun Elliott, Dante Jackson, George Pickens, and Larry Ogunjobi all have an opportunity to play this week. But again, we'll see where the week leads us from their inclusion. The two guys that didn't finish yesterday's game, Joey Porter with a knee and Ben Skoranek with a hip, their availability remains questionable. I just don't have a lot of new information on those guys, given that we just played last night and we're still in the process of assessing the state of some of those things. But anybody that didn't make it out of the stadium yesterday on a four-day turnaround is probably going to have a difficult time showing for this one. I'll quickly outline Kansas City. When I look at them, I'll start first with their defense. Spags has been there a long time. It's got real good continuity in core players and chief assistants. David Merritt, the secondary coach, for example, has been there a long time. Chris Jones up front. Bolton now and Tranquil have been a tandem for a number of years. You feel the continuity when you watch them play. They're a big pressure group. I think they're second in the NFL in terms of the amount of pressure, meaning 5 or more people on possession downs, and that shows on their tape. They're highly coordinated. They do a really good job of pre-snap looks and disguises on the back end and tying some of those things together. They do a really nice job of moving Chris Jones around and making you work to identify where he is, whether it's inside or outside or on the right side of the defense or on the left side of the defense. Not only is he a tremendous defensive line talent, but the way that they move him around forces you to make sure that all of your guys are ready to deal with him, and your schematics are ready to deal with his movement. Couple that, obviously, with the diverse blitz packers, as I mentioned. Bolton and Tranquil do an awesome job. They got some secondary people. Reed does an awesome job in the blitz game. They mix them up. It makes them a tough nut to crack. And they play really good situational football. They keep a lid on in those moments. They do a good job of containing and constricting and getting after the quarterback. They play well as a collective. They play a lot of people in the secondary. They play people that have position flexibility. McDuffie, can't say enough about him. He plays on the edge, outside, but he also plays in at nickel. He's capable of matching significant receivers. Those guys are capable of playing off that as well. And as I mentioned with Reed earlier being a good blitzer, he's a safety by trade, but oftentimes he plays down in what could be described as a dime linebacker position on possession down or on one-dimensional passing moments. And it just adds a lot of layers to their pressure packages. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously, Coach Reed and Mahomes, man, have been together for a long time, and you can throw Travis Kelce, obviously, in that discussion as well, and you really feel that continuity when you watch it on their side of the ball. I think is more displayed in Mahomes' extension than anywhere else. When he extends plays and utilizes his talents, his mobility, his arm talent, his ability to deliver the ball from a variety of angles, his field vision, and all of that, it comes together in the form of splash plays. But I think it's just born out of that continuity. You're talking about a guy who's in complete command of his offense and knows where all his eligibles are and consistently displays that. And that allows him to extend and move around and make the plays that he makes. But he also has good nonverbal communication with central targets like Kelce. They're always on the same page on these play extensions in terms of finding open space and creating big plays without the potential for negativity for them. Can't say enough about Kelce, man. He is a unbelievably unselfish player. I don't think that he gets enough credit for that. He's a big-time playmaker, certainly, but some of the things that you see that he does without the ball in his hands and some of their mesh concepts, man, he's a good rub route guy for others in terms of getting them open. As I mentioned, he's really good in play extensions and finding space and being on the same page with the quarterback. He's also done a really nice job from a protection standpoint. They've had some issues, some with protection at times, and had some lineup changes up front. And, man, he's done an awesome job in terms of working his way out and chipping his way out in some one-dimensional passing circumstances. And that's another reason why I'm really impressed with the unselfishness of his play. They spread the ball around to a lot of eligibles, and they've had a lot of eligibles over the course of the season. Looking at their tape, man, they've had some guys at the receiver position get on the train later in the process. You know, Juju was a reacquisition. D-Hop was a late acquisition. Hollywood Brown has just been activated last week for the first time, and I think he caught 5 balls yesterday. They do a really nice job of staying a step ahead of the posse by spreading the ball around to all their eligibles, and all of those guys play a lot. I think they dressed 6 receivers yesterday, and 5 of them played significant roles, and I think that's just reflective of them week in and week out. They play a lot of people. They have a diverse attack. It makes them a tough nut to crack in terms of their ability to utilize all of those people and be inclusive in terms of how they distribute the ball. Certainly, they have some guys that are routinely involved in their assault. Worthy, can't say enough about him. As a young guy, he consistently makes plays week in and week out and is a splash playmaker for him. You see some schematic things that they do to highlight his talents, his speed. He's run some reverses. He'll take the top off of coverage in terms of stretching things down the field. Obviously, the acquisition or the return of Hollywood Brown gives them another guy that's down the field in that way. Juju's a tough guy. Oftentimes, he's a point of attack type of a guy in the run game, as is Watson. And so they got a nice, diverse, and deep division of labor among their eligibles. And behind the sticks of it all, obviously, is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, man. And there's a reason why they're pursuing their 3rd straight championship. You see it when you watch their video. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how solid and competitive they are in special teams. This is a 3-phase outfit, and that's why they're 14-1. They've been in a lot of close ball games, but good teams find a way to win those games, and they've done so really consistently. And I just think it reflects who they are. And so we're working on a short week, but we're working with an edge. We're honored and excited about competing on Christmas and being a part of that. But we're also excited about being in a big game against a really good team in our home venue and getting back to the business. And obviously our business is winning. And so that's where our focus is in terms of preparing ourselves and positioning ourselves to do that on Wednesday. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
going on with your defense as a result of being stressed by this diverse, multiple, explosive offense, and how much are gap integrity, missed assignments?
You know, it's probably a combination of all the above. When you got some quarterback mobility and some of these diverse attacks that you see, it stresses you. And in some instances, we're playing some guys in some different spots because of the lack of Deshaun Elliott, and that creates some complexities to already a complex discussion in terms of the gap integrity and the tackling and the communication around some of those attacks. But we should be better this time of year. You know, I was really displeased with the 2 red zone touchdowns, for example, to the tight ends. It's just too late in the year to have guys running open like that, to be quite honest with you. And so we got some work to do this week in terms of shoring some of that up. Your ability to make people settle for field goals is significant this time of year, particularly when it's good on good. Our inability to do that, coupled with the turnover and complementary discussion that I opened this session up with, is the reason why the score was the way it was.
As part of the issue, trying to get off the field on defense, maybe less about what you're doing on third downs and more about getting to more third and longs, like not winning first and second down enough, and how does that play against the home team?
Certainly, that's what I was talking about when I was talking about the impact of the big runner. He controlled the game. We didn't control it enough, and oftentimes it controlled the nature of those possession downs or the number of those possession downs, and it allowed them to possess the ball. You know, that's exclusive to Baltimore. Certainly those issues could rear themselves again this week. But specifically as it pertains to the last game, that's something that's exclusive to Baltimore in terms of how they build their attack and how they work to engineer victory. And we'll have a different set of problems this week.
But Kansas City's not been as, I mean, their record's impressive. They've played a lot of close games, more close games than they have in the past. Does this look like the same Chiefs team to you, or are they warming up into being that kind of dominant team they've been? How do you sort of see them as opposed to where they've been?
I guess I don't know how dominant they need to be. I mean, they're 14-1. You know, this is the ultimate parity league. Often these games come down to one scores, and the good teams find a way to get out of stadiums, and they usually find a way to get out of stadiums with great consistency, and they've done that. And so, you know, they're 14-1. They're 2-time defending world champs. I see them in that regard, and I'm preparing with that edge.
A couple guys mentioned after the game that they felt like they weren't physical enough. Tackling was an issue again. How do you remedy that at this point in the season on a short week?
Back to the lab.
Mike, what have you seen from Corey Trice? What do you tell a young quarterback in this type of situation against a guy like Mahomes?
You know, Corey's done a nice job in practice, and he did a nice job yesterday when given an opportunity to get back on the moving train, and he has done so earlier in the year. And so, you know, I expect more of the same from him. In terms of competing against a guy like Mahomes, he better just focus on his fundamentals and his game. He doesn't have enough of a resume to get over preoccupied with what Mahomes is doing. He needs to focus on his game and his quality of play, his eyes, his techniques, his fundamentals, and I'm sure that he will.
Like when you say back to the lab in terms of working on physicality and tackling, is it a mindset issue or a technique issue?
No, there's so much that you can do around tackling, and I've covered this with you guys a bunch. You don't necessarily need pads on to improve tackling or to work at it. You work on the approach. You work on the positioning. You work on awareness of others, gap responsibility. And so when I say back to the lab, it's all encompassing on fundamental things that may not be tackling directly, but really tee up tackling.
You talked about guys needing to trust each other more on defense as far as not trying to step outside of your role to help someone else that you think needs help. Was that a big part of what you saw happen yesterday in some of those red zone possessions, and how do you correct it?
You know, I think that's always the case when you're missing some people, and we were missing some people yesterday, people trying to do too much, creating issues in terms of communication or lack of fluidity. We just got to be on it. We got to take care of our responsibilities and trust that others are doing the same.
How difficult is it to get some of those injured guys back when you have this short week and not as much chance to see them?
Again, it's about their health. There's not going to be a lot of physical opportunity for anybody to display readiness this week on a short week. And so it's really about them getting a clean bill of health and us being able to forecast the amount of snaps that they can take from a conditioning perspective or a health perspective.
Do you anticipate George missing as much time when it first happened?
I did not.
If you do get him back, what does his inclusion do for the offense? How does it make a change?
I think it's self-explanatory. He is a splash playmaker. He's a one-on-one playmaker. Oftentimes he controls schematics, which creates one-on-ones for others, or a light box regarding the run. But that's what talented outside people do. Not only George, but anybody that has talented outside people worthy will do some of the same things to us.
With his talent on the outside not being there, do you see more of an increased attention on the far over the middle as a result?
I think his lack of presence gives people a lot of options, whether or not they choose to focus it on Fryermuth or others or load the run box. You know, it's up to them in terms of their judgment.
You got the chance to meet with Russell Wilson this morning, post game going over the play this week, or how have you seen him handle the short week against such a big opponent?
I have not.
Pretty tough on himself after the game yesterday, Mike. And that was his first more than a year, had more than one turnover also the first time with you. How excited are you to see how a vet like that responds?
I expect him to respond. He's been doing this a long time, and he's tough on himself because he's got a desire to be great. He wants to lead us to victory, and he owns that. But I don't expect it to be an issue in terms of the trajectory of his approach or readiness this week.
Anyone else?
Jalen Warren was used more than Najee yesterday. Was that matchup specific, or was there something that Jalen was just doing better in that?
It probably was just the flow of the game. We had every intentions of being inclusive and utilizing all our backs, not only yesterday, but because we're on a short turnaround and we got another game coming. And so we wanted to use all three guys. And really, Jalen got a heck of a lot more than the others, just based on kind of some game circumstances when he was in the general flow of the game.
What did you want to go for on that 4th and 6 yesterday? Just let the field position.
I liked the positioning of where we were. I had a feel of what they might be in, and so we felt comfortable with the concept that we had.
You've said to us many times you like playing with people. Hard Knocks trying to say it. I like playing with people. We're playing the Super Bowl champions now, so in addition to what this means for the standings, how important is it for your team to play well and maybe beat this caliber of team going into the playoffs?
It's not maybe beat for us. We're preparing to win the game. There's growth in wins and experiences, and obviously those experiences are fruitful ones when you play really good people. And so we respect these guys, and we understand that they're the standard, and so we're working toward it in an effort to win this week.
Mike, in regard to Fryer, you need to get the ball to him more, target him more, because really for most games, it's never more than 3 targets.
You know, he's a capable guy, but again, we spread the ball around, and oftentimes where we throw the ball or how we distribute the ball is dictated by some of the schematics of others. And I just think that that's the strength of any collective. Like I was talking about with Kansas City, Kelsey probably doesn't have the numbers that people are used to seeing him have, but they're 14-1, and he's doing a lot of really good things without the football. And he's playing a well-rounded game, an unselfish game. He's rubbing for people in man-to-man circumstances. He's chipping his way out in one-dimensional passing circumstances. And so stats don't oftentimes tell the story, and I think the same thing can be said for us in Fryermuth.
You said you liked the look you got on 4th down, which was a clean ball to Calvin Austin, back-to-back, 565 with George out. How do you see Calvin step into that role, a greater role with George out and as the impression?
You know, Calvin's evolution has nothing to do with the availability or the lack of availability of others, man. He's just a guy that's stepping forward with each and every opportunity. His experience is starting to show. He's got a feel for the game. He's competitive. He's playing fast, and it's reasonable to expect that to continue.
Mike, I'm guessing in retrospect, you probably wish he had, because you have any problem with Russ trying to score on that play.
You're right. In retrospect, I wish he had.
Deontay Johnson is expected to be available on waivers this week. Do you anticipate having any interest in him back?
I have nothing to add about somebody that's not in our football team right now.
Anyone else?
Fair enough.
All right.
Thank you.
And I actually got a notification on my phone, so we're going to be going through the notes and what I have on my phone when it's appropriate. So very weird, because this press conference occurred on Sunday, So, and it would have been about noon. So at noon on a Sunday, when people are getting ready to watch football, Mike Tomlin's doing a press conference because we play Wednesday. Had we played Thursday, he would have done it Monday. So it was just weird having this press conference on Sunday. Now, obviously, I'm watching it the day before Christmas. But yeah. So let's see. He had Fields, Elliott, Jackson, Pickens, Lario trending up, with those guys having the possibility of playing, which I'll now go to my phone because you guys will have this information since, with this up. I was like, I might not have this information, knowing you guys probably would. And turns out I do have this information. So Fields is questionable. George was full with his hamstring, so he's good to go. Elliott was full with his, so he's good to go. Jackson back full. And then Larry O with his groin full. And none of those guys have any injury designations heading into the game versus Kansas City. So we get Elliott, Jackson, Pickens, and Larry O all back, with Fields being questionable. He might be like the third guy, just the emergency quarterback, Let's see. So it said Porter and Ben Skoranek, and there might have been someone else that I missed, but I did get those two. Joey Porter did not practice, and neither did Ben Skoranek. So Joey with his knee and Ben with his hip are both out. But now that'll give them a week and a half between this game and Cincinnati in order to get healthy, and my guess is they would both play in that game. It's a guess, but let's see. So this is really without saying. By the way, there was nothing else to add. Justin was limited, so he's questionable, but everyone else I did not name. Let's see, Tyler Medikevich, knee full. That's a rest day, that's a rest day, that's a rest day, it's a rest day. Mike Williams had a rest day. Yeah. Anyone who's actually injured, besides Fields, Skoranek, and Porter, were all full participants. So I'm going to close that now. So obviously KC, they're well coached. They have good players. That you don't really become 14-1 without having, those. And even though it's quite a bit of luck that they're 14-1, the bad snap by the Raiders, it's technique, and it's good technique at that to block a field goal, but it doesn't happen often. So blocking the Broncos field goal, that's a little bit of luck. There's just a couple things here and there where they could definitely be in the 12-3, maybe even 11-4 ballpark. But no, it's 14-1, resilient team with just a little bit of luck on their side. And I wrote this down, and I can't remember what triggered it, but if I'm correct on this, because I think Tomlin was talking about like one-score games or something like that. I remember this from a few seasons ago, and I think it was the average score in an NFL game. I don't know if it was that season or over a cumulative amount of seasons, but the average score was like 27-24. Like, an NFL game normally is close. And typically, I would say within one score. And you obviously do have like Green Bay blowing out the Saints 34-0, but I remember something like that from a few years ago. PQ was absolutely right. Tomlin he didn't say PQ was right, but he talked about the guys not being where they're supposed to be, and you leave a tight end wide open for a touchdown. Let's see. I do have estimate, walkthrough, and question mark. I wrote reports, which is the injury reports. Tomlin talked about how you're not really doing anything too physical this week. Because, let's see, Sunday was an estimated practice report, or injury report, and they didn't actually hold practice with it being the day after a game. The Steelers held a walkthrough on Monday, and it looks like they actually did a pretty legit practice today, on Tuesday the 24th. The Chiefs, let's see. Okay, we have a few guys for the Chiefs. Chamari Connor, concussion, out. DJ Humphries, hamstring, out. Chris Jones, calf, questionable. Jawan Taylor, knee, questionable. Chris Jones is probably going to play. Now, could we have him on like a limited snap count? Maybe. But let's see. Okay, so everyone not one of those 4 players got full practice between Cree Humphrey, Mahomes, Justin Reed, Nikom Remigio, Josh Williams, Xavier Worthy, and Peyton Hendershot, who is in his 20-day window to return from injured reserve. And it looks like they held practice both days, it looks like. Didn't say it was a walkthrough for Kansas City. So it looks like Kansas City held a legit practice both days, and we'll see how that goes. If they're a little physically more beat up than Pittsburgh, who knows? Or they could be more prepared than Pittsburgh. It's kind of a toss up on what you're doing. The 4th and 6 call where they went for it, I didn't like going for it. I really didn't. I was more of a try to draw them off. If they jump, cool, it's 4th and 1, and either that I'm cool going for, or I think that would have put us right about in Boswell's range to try a long field goal. But the 4th and 6, I really didn't like going for it. And this is like a duh, but you prepare to win every single week. That's what Tomlin said. We're preparing to win this week. And you prepare to win every week. You're not going to prepare to lose. You work and you prepare to win. He called Kansas City the standard. And I just thought of saying the standard is the standard. In Kansas City, they kind of are the standard. Back-to-back champs going for a 3rd straight. They're constantly getting to the AFC Championship game. I don't think Mahomes, in his time as a starter, has never made that, if I'm right. Maybe he missed it 1 year, but I don't think he did. I think every year Mahomes has been a starter from the 2018 season on. Every year they've been in the AFC Championship, which is absolutely insane. And he's right. That is the standard to compete for the Super Bowl every single year. So him saying that made me think of the standard is the standard. And that's it. The Steelers, the standard, compete for the Super Bowl every single year. Now, that doesn't happen, obviously. But that was something that kind of made me think about it. And then hindsight's 2020 with the Russ not sliding and fumbling. And, it's like, yeah, in retrospect, he definitely should have slid. But, he... in an alternate universe, Russell Wilson, he doesn't slide, and he makes it into the end zone, and the Steelers end up winning the game by, on a game-winning field goal by Chris Boswell. So, some kind of alternate universe. Like, he scores, and the touchdown proves huge. In which case, yeah, great job not sliding. Great job fighting your way and getting in there. And I'll bring up one more. So Dan Campbell, the coach for the Lions, when they tried the onside versus Buffalo with, maybe 12 minutes left in the game, and they do it, and Matt Collins has the ball, and he's returning it to, I think, inside the 5 or right about the 5-yard line. And as Matt Collins was running down the sideline, Dan was like, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. It's like, yeah, well, in hindsight, you know, in hindsight, maybe you shouldn't have done that. But hindsight's always 20/20, what they say. So, alright guys, so if you did enjoy this, please do leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, turn notifications on. I'll see all you guys in the next video, hopefully after the Steelers upset the Chiefs, because I'm sure the Chiefs are favorite at Pittsburgh. And we got to win.